Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for this student-powered simulation webinar from Sim and Skills. My name is Chris Dinsdale. I'll introduce myself properly in a second, but I'm joining you from not very sunny Chesterfield, which is where Sim and Skills HQ is. And we're very lucky that we've had over 220 people register to join us on the webinar today, representing over 70 higher education institutions from across the UK and Ireland. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Chris Dinsdale. I'm one of the directors here at Sim and Skills. And for those who do know me, that may well be through the work I've done with CAE or Lairdale, or possibly from my time teaching in universities and at the Higher Education Academy, working on national simulation projects. I've been involved with simulation for 15 or more years now, and I've seen some huge evolution in the way that simulation is developed, delivered. And what we really want to do is introduce you to some of the work we've been doing today at Sim and Skills, and hopefully something that will influence and help you in your practice moving forwards. A little bit of housekeeping for the duration of the webinar. If you wouldn't mind keeping your cameras and microphones off. If you do want to engage with us, then please use the chat. We are very lucky to have not only the team here from Sim and Skills joining us on the call, but also some guest presenters. So please engage on the chat. The team will be ready and waiting to answer questions. What we'll do is at the end, we'll collate questions and we'll circulate our answers so everybody gets a fair crack. So, as I said, here at Sim and Skills, we've been working on some things that we wanted to share with you. The aim of today is to promote student-powered simulation as an approach to your simulation activity that provides a all-in-one solution to some of the common challenges and to really be able to unlock the potential of simulation to be used throughout a curriculum. Who are we? So Sim and Skills, we're a team of 8 people, and we are remote throughout the UK with a central base here in Chesterfield. We're very lucky to work with partners throughout the simulation world to bring some real best-in-class products to help you succeed in simulation practice. So our aim is to be able to provide anything that you need to make your simulation practice effective, to support you and your students in implementing simulation throughout your curriculum. So what is student-powered simulation? So this is a model that we've designed here at Sim and Skills. Essentially, the topic of clinical placement capacity and the use of simulation-based education to supplement what would have traditionally been physical placements in a healthcare setting has been hotly debated over recent years. And with no sign that the placement shortfall is going to ease anytime soon, we wanted to look at some of the key concepts to consider when evaluating simulated placements in particular. So a bit of context. I think it's fair to say that a typical educational program that leads to registration as a healthcare practitioner will include a number of different modules of study spread across a 3 or maybe 4-year program, and each of these modules will have a focus on different aspects of professional practice, including, for example, practical modules incorporating acquisition of skills and techniques that will be incorporated in the professional scope of practice. Quite often, these modules include simulation-based activities, so including summative assessment, OSCEs, for example, that really prepare students for attending clinical placements. You'll also have theory-based modules, including, for example, anatomy and physiology, pathophysiology of disease, injuries, conditions, and these modules typically include taught sessions by subject matter experts, self-directed learning activities, and maybe summative assessments, but not typically include simulation-based education. We'll also have professional modules aimed at exploring the concepts and applications of non-clinical topics, such as how to influence healthcare professionals to act in a manner that's ethical, patient-centered, and within legal and regulatory frameworks. Teaching activities during professional modules may well be varied, and summative assessments will often be very varied, with things like group projects, case study-based assessments, and assignments that encourage debate, reflection, and discussion. Finally, interprofessional modules, which aims to expose students to the challenges and benefits of working as a mixed group of disciplines, each with their own cultures, experience, and scopes of practice. And this aims to foster integrated decision-making, collaborative practice. Mixing disciplines is often a challenge, as I know from my experience at working in universities, including things such as simple timetabling. Developing high quality and impactful IP learning activities is a constantly evolving process. Summative assessments are often group-based and will often be individual, reflective, written assignments. As a general rule, these types of educational programs will include time spent on clinical placements, working alongside qualified professionals. Issues around placement capacity have been present for many years, with the coveted role of placement lead often being allocated whichever staff member is slowest to say no. This challenge was one of the drivers for developing this student-powered simulation model. For example, in nursing, the NMC requires 2,300 hours of placement experience during a typical 3-year program, and this aims to meet a set of proficiencies that's often captured in a practice development document, some description. This proposed change to 1,800 hours by the NMC is still in debate, but the provision of sufficient high-quality placements with enough variety and diversity of experience, which are supported by suitably experienced mentors and practice supervisors, is always a huge challenge for HEIs. Even when placements are found, there is no guarantee of equity experience for students. With an increase in new pathways to practice and more disciplines requiring placements, we've got more students competing for the same or even lesser numbers of placements. So I think we can agree that simulation-based education has developed over the last 20 years, for example, to be a recognised and valued teaching, learning and assessment modality. Simulation, however, is often most closely associated with the practical-based subjects, and many HEIs have struggled to embed simulation in even these modules in the curriculum effectively, let alone the non-practical modules. If simulation-based education is a potential way to address the shortfall in placement provision, it must be recognised that there is a fundamental difference between simulation activities that take place within the core curriculum and simulated clinical placements. Simulation activities contained within a core curriculum should allow students to acquire and practice skills, test the knowledge of the subject, and should focus on preparing the students for placement, not necessarily testing competencies and proficiencies in a placement setting. Simulation within core modules should allow students to fail safely within an educational context and are often heavily facilitator-led. Simulation, when used to supplement clinical placements, should focus on the students moving from an observer to an active participant role, ultimately leading to the summative sign-off of observed skills and behaviours in sufficient quantity to demonstrate competency and to allow students to develop levels of proficiency beyond those of the minimum standard. So I personally firmly believe that it's important to differentiate the way that simulation is to be used and to set objectives and activities that are appropriate. So we're not just adding more sim. From discussions with the simulation community widely, what we've been able to do is really hone down the fact that the most common problems can often be grouped together in 3 distinct groups. The first group would be promoting student agency and encouraging students to be active parts of their learning, to take ownership of their learning and be engaged. The second would be placement capacity and the very, very current topic of providing simulated placements, virtual placements to supplement those of a more traditional type. Finally, it's the scalability and sustainability of simulation within higher education programs in particular. As we know, often simulation is resource intensive. Simulation has often been restricted to being a tool to be used by the facilitator and to be used on the student. This has often created a common trend of simulation being very resource intensive and reliant on the ability and availability of the facilitator, the simulation facilities, resources, and often associated technical support. Advances in technology offer an opportunity to embrace simulation as a method of learning that can be student-led, therefore encouraging more ownership and investment by the individual learner and control over when and how they can experience simulated practice. Putting students at the centre of their educational journey has been advocated by the NMC, who says that students should be empowered to take control of and responsibility for their own learning and to self-direct their learning if safe and appropriate. They should be provided with opportunities to develop their own practice and to work towards becoming independent, reflective and professional practitioners. Although there's often a hesitancy by facilitators to allow students to access simulation independently, finding digital-based solutions that allow faculty to appraise and validate content easily and present students with unlimited opportunities to learn and test themselves safely is possible. These solutions can then be utilised on a scale that's often not practicable for traditional physical, hands-on based simulation activities. Virtual simulation is an area of growth seen as a way to reduce the human resource required of in-person simulation. More so, the ability to present students with solutions that do not rely upon one platform of access, such as VR headsets or institutional computers, and are available to access 24/7, also creates inclusion and ease of access that's often lacking. Thinking about placement capacity, we know that the NMC has gradually increased acceptance of simulation to form part of those 2,300 placement hours and to the current 600 hours threshold. This has given education providers the ability to balance the value in students attending physical placements, where they'll be immersed in their cultures, environments, and variety of experience they need to become safe and effective practitioners. This balance with the ability to ensure that students have an equity of exposure to those core competencies that are requirements of practice with a degree of academic rigour that's difficult to guarantee in the workplace. When considering the equity of experience with simulated placements, some advantages of this approach include that all students experience a given situation, unlike in traditional placements where workloads, variety, and engagements vary. Also, no risk to patient safety. So the introduction of simulated placements for undergraduate programs has been reported as having reduced pressure on placement areas and enhanced student satisfaction. Simulated learning has seen dramatic improvements in the confidence and knowledge that students take to their clinical placement. And likewise, the use of simulation has seen the confidence of students in their own skills and ability rocket, making for more comfortable transitions from a classroom learning to a practice setting. When we think about the scalability of this type of simulation, whilst the ability to use simulation to provide placement experiences without diluting the student's education is becoming more widely accepted, the ability of HEIs and in particular simulation faculties to provide additional capacity and resources is not without its challenges. Simulation faculties often require specialist knowledge, equipment, physical space that's often a premium in most institutions, and requires ongoing financial investment as well as the appropriate resources to function effectively. Institutions that provide simulation placement experience can attract financial tariffs that would have been paid to a placement provider to fund the provision of simulation-based education. However, experienced simulation faculty and technical staff are already in high demand and too low in number to always ensure the quality that these activities require. Simulation can play a key role in reducing the demand on clinical placements and offer high-quality learning opportunities which in hand improve student satisfaction. In recent years, there's been an increase in mixed reality simulation solutions that can reduce the reliance on physical space and the high-cost, high-resource equipment. Most of these solutions were designed to allow a student access to simulated clinical experiences through the use of virtual and augmented reality. However, still relied upon facilitators to have a degree of technical fluency and offering little in the way of structured feedback and debriefing, for example, instead relying simply on the depth of the immersion to provide a learning experience. So although the need for decreased simulation-specific facilities could be shown, the workload for the simulation faculty and increasing the need for technical support is not. And potentially this was increased with the introduction of new technologies that require significant mastery by facilitators. Ensuring that content for these platforms was educationally robust, localized to both geography and culture, discipline-specific and clinically relevant has become a challenge for facilitators to overcome rather than a valuable addition to alleviate workload and add value. So as we listened to some of the same challenges being discussed over these years, we decided to try and offer solutions that directly address the issues and aim to alleviate workload and provide quality learning experiences to students, putting them at the heart of the action. From this, the model of student-powered simulation was born. Student-powered simulation can include preset experiences that require students to explore topics that have been introduced in core modules throughout the curriculum, apply their knowledge to relevant scenarios to their practice. Students can be empowered to create simulated content, either alone or in groups of peers, that require that they bring to bear all the elements of their education to craft scenarios that are clinically sound, professionally relevant, and academically underpinned. The ability for students to explore topics that are allied to an area of study, or reflect on experiences they've had whilst on placement makes student-powered simulation approach a highly adaptable and effective modality of teaching. Using validated feedback and debriefing techniques, the student-powered simulation activity can give the learner the confidence and readiness to demonstrate competence, having had a level of practice which would be impossible to facilitate in non-digital formats. One UK university reported a 20 to 30% reduction in demand on placement capacity as a result of the use of simulation software. They stated that basic competence training meant that students enter their clinical placement with a higher degree of confidence in their skills and ability, with students reporting reduced anxiety when beginning placements after using the software. Similarly, immersive technologies allow clinical settings to be recreated on campus, so reducing capacity pressure in practice settings. Let me be clear though, although we advocate the use that simulation can go a long way to alleviate some of these problems, can only achieve these goals alongside well-funded and more easily available clinical placements. Here at Sim and Skills, we have the privilege to be able to look across all simulation solutions available, to look at what's been developed by passionate and talented individuals and companies that we can approach to find the best solutions that can meet your needs as educators, as well as those of the students and those learners who have invested in their own education. The student-powered simulation model brings together 3 of the best simulation platforms to address these core challenges of promoting student agency, providing simulated placement experiences, and enhancing the scalability and sustainability of offering simulation education. All 3 solutions have been developed to put the student at the heart of the experience, with faculty oversight and support, whilst minimising pressure on institutional resources. So we're going to take a look at each one of those 3 solutions in turn. More importantly, hear not from me only, but hear from both users and subject matter experts about how and why they've been developed and implemented. So, as we start to introduce PCS Spark here, let me share you some of my experiences when using simulation in teaching. So when trying to think about using simulation in a curriculum, some of the easier ways is using simulation for physical examination teaching, for the practice and the assessment of such skills, using patient simulators and simulated patients. For clinical skills teaching, patient simulators and task trainers, for example, fit the need very, very well. However, none of the above, or none of the previous approaches allow high quality practice of things, the dark arts, things like communication, history taking. And one of the holy grails that I've always found with simulation-based education is to appropriately approach topics such as mental health assessment. So when we're thinking about communication and the value in communication and how communication can be used to form really well-rounded practitioners, we think about teaching communication skills, and quite often a traditional approach, and especially in my experience, would be didactic teaching about how to question using open and closed questioning, for example, the benefits, the pros and cons of each approach, and then potentially trying to implement these in some type of icebreaker style activity, and maybe put students together to learn a bit about each other and then try and report that back to a bigger group. And all those experiences, those activities can be fun, but relatively superficial when it comes to relating to professional practice. They're obviously non-standardized approaches. They're very little in the way of topic-specific content. Not really ethical to put students together and start getting them to ask each other about their own medical history, for example. And also there's often a little approach to feedback and debriefing in any formal way. So one potential option could be to use standardized patients, for example. And although that can be great in terms of interaction and realism and engagement, again, it's non-standardized. It's very high resource intensive to run a standardized patient program for large cohorts of students. It's hard to replicate, it's hard to scale, and quite often there's a question mark over the academic rigor of these activities. Now, in context of simulation design, obviously, we're always going to start with a question that we're trying to answer. And if we accept that effective communication can help to reduce things like medical errors, reduced errors mean reduced professional liability or litigation, for example, the question might well be, how can I use simulation to teach communication skills and techniques to large cohorts of healthcare students at different levels of study, whilst ensuring that it's localized content, It's got a low impact on teaching resources. It's of high value to students, giving them self-directed access, flexible times to access, different options in terms of hardware and platform, and also the ability to fail and repeat as much as you need. To be able to have formulated formal feedback and debriefing activities, and even things like integration into local LMS systems at the institution. So the answer that we found was PCS Spark. What is PCS Spark? Essentially, it's a self-directed platform which is agnostic, it's cloud-based, it's powered by artificial intelligence, and it's a patient communication simulator offering unlimited practice of scenarios with local content, with patient diversity, a variety of environments, and a spiraling level of complexity that's going to mirror student performance. What I really want you to do, though, is hear it from somebody other than me. So what we're going to do is we're going to hear from our friend Johnny Davis at Liverpool John Moores University about his experience in using PCS Spark in his curriculum.
Hello, my name's Jonathan Davis and I'm a senior lecturer in clinical pharmacy up at Liverpool John Moores University in Liverpool. And I've been invited here today to discuss a little bit of our use of desk-based virtual simulation tools, in particular PCS Spark, and how we've integrated it to supplement and support our experiential learning program. So this has been something that we've been using since 2020 in the undergraduate Master of Pharmacy program at LJMU. We have been using it in a variety of fashions, and the use has evolved over time. But initially, it was very much driven by COVID. We, as with many health disciplines, found that overnight our placement provision stopped, our traditional bricks and mortar simulation unit was unable to be accessed, and as a program team we were looking for alternatives in terms of ways that we could support our students in accessing placement environments, placement settings, or providing experience that we wouldn't necessarily be able to otherwise during the restrictions that were present at the time. However, more than that, over time, our use of this has evolved quite substantially. And in terms of our program team, the ways that we try to deploy and use PCS Spark as a tool alongside our experiential learning are evolving over time. Now, for anyone that's not aware, there are quite significant changes afoot for the undergraduate Master of Pharmacy program where this is integrated, where from 2026 onwards, students that have completed the 4-year integrated master's program plus the 1-year foundation training and completed the registration assessment will be annotated as independent prescribers from the point of registration, whereas previously it was a postgraduate qualification undertaken several years later. Now, this means that in terms of program design at the moment, we're having to stress and to develop skills that were not necessarily embedded as fully in undergraduate pharmacy education as they were previously, including things like clinical decision making, clinical reasoning, as well as history taking. And this is very much where we've seen the role of PCS Spark for us in terms of our program. We've integrated it into virtual placement days where students are tasked with being a pharmacist in an environment, whether that's a community pharmacy, a hospital pharmacy, primary care setting, where students are asked to take on a patient load, a patient list of however many patients they're expected to take care of. And these are designed to be reflective of the environment, of the sorts of things that a pharmacist would be expected to do in practice. As a part of this, students will be expected to interact with and to make decisions based upon patients that are simulated through PCS Spark. Now, to give you an example, we may be setting a placement day in a GP practice setting where a patient is presented with a sore throat and our students are expected to take a history from the patient. They're expected to perform some basic physical assessment and decide whether the person requires antibiotics or not. And then subsequent to that, they might be asked to write a prescription for the antibiotics that they would recommend for the patient. So it allows us to make these sorts of scenarios more realistic and to embed real patients and real perspectives within there. Being able to simulate a variety of patients of different genders, different ages, and in different settings supports us in trying to maintain as much immersion as we can from a desk-based virtual reality simulation piece of software. In terms of this product, actually, one of the things that's really important to say as well is how it's perhaps changed a little of how we are able to set up and to work with our simulation provision. So lots of the workload associated with this, and I won't lie to you that there is quite a substantial amount of work that goes into setting up a patient in terms of setting it up to customize it to what you want it to say and what different responses you want it to give and what the vital signs might be and what the patient's tonsils look like in the context of the example I was using earlier. But it is work that can be front loaded so that essentially these events run themselves when you set them, and it allows the student to access them independently, autonomously at a time that suits them, as well as potentially allowing the teaching team to focus on the more traditional simulation and teaching events at the times where these are scheduled, with maximum flexibility for students to take control of their own learning and to access these placement style experiences, whether it's as scheduled at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning or at 4 a.m. on a Sunday.
Thanks, Johnny. Appreciate your input there. Like all of the guest speakers, Johnny's on the call today, and so is some of the team from PCS Spark, so please feel free to ask questions. So PCS Spark is powered by an artificial intelligence engine that learns and improves with every interaction. With over 500,000 global users teaching this AI and learning from the experiences all day, every day, feedback is generated and able to be used either self-directed or as a debriefing activity with facilitators or peers, and it's made easy with your learning management system integration. Embedding PCS Spark into your local LMS is going to allow you that deep curriculum integration, and it's going to ensure the ability to validate content, ensure relevance to your program, as well as ensuring that all-important academic rigor. As an administrator, you're going to be able to review engagement data and demonstrate that return on investment through the data gathered alongside things like student satisfaction responses. PCS Spark is the gold standard in virtual reality and AI-powered simulation. As a patient communication simulator, it allows students to experience and revisit fully customized patients and scenarios with the ability to write your own content, fully localized to your practice. Okay, let's look at StudentSim. So StudentSim has been developed by the team who introduced us to the very popular Iris collaborative authoring platform, which is in use by simulation faculties across the world. As an educator who's been faced with the continual challenge of trying to find new and innovative ways of engaging teaching sessions with healthcare students, StudentSim really caught my attention, and let me explain to you why. So just to recap an earlier thought, and I accept that this is a fairly simplistic way to break down the structure of a health program, but your typical undergraduate program is going to be structured 2 to 4 years full-time study, 50% university-based, 50% on placement, for example, and broken down into those modules that we talked about earlier with practical skills, theory sessions, professional issues, and also this collaborative kind of interprofessional practice. Whereas simulation is most often associated with the practical skills modules, it's more easily integrated into these modules. That's clinical skills practice, patient assessment scenarios, resuscitation training, for example. Simulation is less often and harder to integrate into other module types. So instead, more traditional learning and teaching modalities are relied upon. So each module can consist of, for example, taught sessions, self-directed learning activities, and some type of written assessment. It might be multi-choice question papers, maybe reflective pieces, case studies, essays, group presentations, or OSCEs. What StudentSim does is it offers a way to incorporate simulation-based education into every aspect of a healthcare professional program. So by allowing students to work independently or in groups to research, design, validate, reference, deliver, and assess a simulation, you're able to really bridge that theory-practice gap and really offer that unique and academically rigorous experience. So students will be able to research a topic. Potentially that's a topic that's set by faculty, potentially it's a topic they've self-identified, and they can use their knowledge of things like the anatomy, physiology, and clinical practice to design a scenario that's going to allow them to test their knowledge and skills, whilst needing to link the design to standards of best practice, professional frameworks, and relative literature. So the end result would allow them to demonstrate a real deep grasp of this kind of holistic approach to patient care, and give them those demonstrable skills, which are going to increase not only their practice, but also their chances of employability post-registration. So the StudentSim approach is going to allow learners to use topics that they've experienced whilst on placement, for example, to really deep dive into issues surrounding what can often be hugely impactful events, and to give them the opportunity to explore different approaches and different outcomes for each of these events. It's also going to give the programme faculty the chance to provide simulation placement hours and meet requirements for your institution in receiving those placement tariffs in lieu of time spent out on placement. Now, speaking as an educator, I would have genuinely loved to have tried this approach as a way to bring that kind of more engaging, innovative practice or the innovative method to things like a professional issues module. But don't take it from me that this is like a valid approach, and don't take it from me this is a sustainable way to bring simulation into more of your curriculum and to more of your students, because people have actually done this successfully. Let's listen to what Mandy Wilford at Staffordshire University has got to say.
Hello, my name is Amanda Wilford, and it gives me great pleasure to contribute to this wonderful session from Sim & Skills. I currently work at Staffordshire University, and I lead the MSc in Simulation-Based Education and a senior lecturer in Patient Safety and Simulation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our experience with StudentSim. So why did this come about? Well, really, a year or so ago, we wanted to pilot some new ideas for curricula. We recognise that our student nurses, student midwives, student paramedics, student ODPs, student social workers have been working in a very challenging way. So we wanted to improve their identity as professionals, but also their agency. What structures can we put in place to support them? We have a new simulation strategy. Staffordshire had a 5.8 million build of a brand new centre at Stafford. We also recognise it's very challenging in today's social and healthcare setting, so a little bit about resilience, and we still have the impact of COVID-19. So about a year and a half ago, we got some money to try and increase placements, and our initial target group was paramedic students in their final year and second and third year ODPs. This is what we did. We did a pilot week of teaching them how to be simulation facilitators. We put them through a planned train the trainer course. We used the talk debrief tool, and using a paper template, we gave them essentially the keys to the simulation centre at Stafford and said create any simulation using any modality. We then asked the students to run the technology with some technical assistance to lead the pre-brief, the facilitation and the debrief using the talk debrief tool, and we evaluated this using a modified SETM tool. So that's what we did. What we found, I've just got two now screenshots for you. The paramedic evaluations really enjoyed it, seen by the dark blue. We had over 70 go through this, and we found that they really were very proud of their simulation designs. We have been using the Iris online authoring tool for a number of years as staff, and we use those headings to create a Word paper version. We also, as part of our pilot group in the second phase, looked at student nurses. This is just one example. We did a day with 21, and you can see here great dark blue, and they really enjoyed it. Knowledgeable, facilitators were friendly. But what was interesting, although we had fantastic evaluations from the learners, as faculty, so the academics, the simulation team, and also the technologists, we found this. We found that the students took ownership of their simulation designs. One of them was looking after a patient with a head injury. They had to go back to the protocols, go back to the literature. They really thought about their learning outcomes. They really thought about what they wanted their peers in their student groups to do. What things were professional? How would you evaluate that? They really felt part of the learning. So with this knowledge, I presented this at last year's Simulation Society meeting in the UK. I went to visit Iris on the stand, showed them the work and said, is there anything we can do? We're already an Iris customer. Can you do something? So Iris very graciously created StudentSim based on this project. So here are some screenshots about StudentSim. The great thing is the students have their own wizard with prompts all the way through, and they get to own it. So from the arrow, their identity and their agency. We have 6 steps. This is the same as the mini sim wizard with lots of prompts. We are in Axel endorsed as a school, so again we map everything to the Axel criteria. It's all there for them. But even cooler than that, when the students struggle, they can tag us in the review section, and if I was their facilitator that day, it could be a technologist, they can tag me and I can prompt them and give them some top tips and cues. As a result of this, the students are empowered to create their own simulation designs that they can then run, and right at the end they can send it back to request a review to get signed off to that quality piece. As a result of that, they've designed in Iris, and if needed, if it was an absolutely fantastic one, we could import it into our main Iris system and use it. So in summary, what Student Iris does, it's a vehicle for student-centered learning. It improves their confidence and competence, and I truly believe it creates a community of practice. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask at this session or drop me an email or on Twitter. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Mandy. Really good to hear experiences. I know that the feedback from students there at Stafford has been fantastic. So this entire StudentSim journey is going to be able to be externally and internally validated. It's going to be moderated, and integration with institutional LMSs is going to allow that really deep link into your LTA strategy. And think for truly progressive programs, the ability to validate scenarios that are produced via StudentSim, and by involving things like your program's external assessors and your faculty QA team, these scenarios are going to be able to be used for summative assessment, allowing the student group to be assessed in a variety of topics in one experience. So I think that really is truly an example of student-powered simulation. What I would like to say, if you're interested in things like PCS Spark and StudentSim, please feel free to put a little note in the chat, either the word Spark or the word StudentSim, and then we'll know that we'll follow up with you with information and the opportunity to see more of each of these programs. We now come to Immersify Education. So this is a brand new platform to UK healthcare education. And this has been very successfully developed initially to support dental education. I know that we're lucky enough to have some of the team from Immersify on the call today. So again, feel free to say hello in the chat. And we've got Max, Chloe and Stuart definitely from Immersify will be happy to engage with you. So this is a fantastic app-based approach, which is going to bring learning resources to your students in a really highly interactive platform. So the initial content in Immersify is mapped directly onto the NMC undergraduate nursing proficiency framework. And it's going to be a great way to allow your students unlimited access to that knowledge base. It's going to help them to be successful both in their academic studies and also whilst on placement. Topics throughout the curriculum are going to be presented with formative testing and feedback activities, as well as utilising augmented and virtual reality to really bring that learning to life. So all of this can be done from those devices that students have welded to their hands all day, every day, and it's going to be a really familiar way for them to engage with and access this type of support. Joining us to share more about the way that Immersify can support you and your students and really bring simulation into the palm of their hands is Stuart Rickles, who many of you may know from his previous role as Head of Simulation at the University of Chester. So I'll pass over to Stuart to give you a little bit more insight.
Welcome to the Immersify educational platform. My name is Stuart Rickles. I'm the Head of Simulation and Nursing Content Lead at Immersify, and I'll be taking you through this comprehensive educational solution to support your students to develop their proficiencies during their programme of study. Okay, let's look at the areas that utilising the Immersify platform can support you with your organisation. Placement learning, a key part of the development of students as they transition their theory and apply that into practice. either in the placement setting or within the simulated placement environment. We offer an ability for the learner to practice digitally those skills, repeated exposure without the need for expensive equipment, expensive clinical spaces, or expensive time. The Immersify platform provides a personalised and inclusive learning environment. It's inclusive because of the 3D materials, the audible content which is pausable, rewind, replay, the formative assessment of knowledge to give feedback to students, but also we use that feedback in order to personalise through our artificial intelligence algorithm to provide a unique experience to students and to give them a custom lesson generated in order to allow them to have the specific content to develop their learning. Academic time and resources are always very, very precious. So by implementing the Immersify platform, you'll be able to embed quality assured content which allows students to learn asynchronously and synchronously to enable you to facilitate learning in your in-person sessions without the need for you to repeat numerous sessions, numerous times delivering the same content. The experience the students go through using the Immersify platform will enable them to engage with lessons, to develop that knowledge, formative review to ensure understanding of that knowledge, and application through simulations. These are combined together through a proficiency dashboard to allow the students to assimilate their evidence and demonstrate their attainment of the proficiencies as they move through the programme. Importantly, how does Immersify as an educational resource support student outcomes whilst on a programme? So we've seen repeatedly learners feeding back how the Immersify platform is supporting them to develop their skills and knowledge acquisition, how it's enhancing their confidence in practice when developing proficiencies, and how this is developed through the interaction with our augmented reality, 3D visualizations of content, gamification, how this is resulting in enhanced student education. Understanding diversity for learners to develop cultural competence is central to nursing development and proficiencies. Our patient database informs our simulations and scenarios to enable learners to understand the application of different individuals' needs and how they respond to the care of patients. We can alter this to localize the patient database for your specific program needs. So if you have particular areas within your health economy where there are particular disease profiles prevalent, we can work with you to represent these patient cohorts within our patient database. Adopting Immersify within your program will enable you to demonstrate to prospective students how you will support them, how they'll deliver their proficiencies, how their learning is bridging from home to university through to practice. This will also help to foster a end-to-end engagement with a product which will develop retention and also enable them to increase their progressional rates from year to year and to completion of program. So why Immersify for your nursing program? Well, we provide an innovative, comprehensive educational experience for students, utilising augmented reality, visual 3D models, but also bespoke lessons tailored for an individual's learning needs using our artificial intelligence algorithm. We provide responsive support at program, technical and user level. We're available across mobile, tablet and via the web, so utilising a PC. So no need for expensive capital investment in bespoke equipment. We enable students, academic and practice partners to track progress against the attainment of proficiencies. We provide a digital solution which really addresses the needs of a modern learner with bite-sized, easily accessible digital materials which are interactive. And finally, we offer a comprehensive digital simulation-based experience to deliver mastery of skill and to ensure application of theory and practice without expensive equipment or materials, therefore providing a sustainable way for students to learn.
Thank you very much, Stuart. And I'm sure, as you can see, Immersify is going to be a really attractive resource for students to access, and I'm sure it's going to drive significant engagement in their own learning. And that content that's been developed initially for the UK nursing curriculum can be further modularised to meet the needs of any student studying healthcare subjects. And that AI technology is going to evolve to provide individualised and adaptive learning experience, which is really going to be tailored to the needs of the individual students. So institutional features such as single sign-on, reporting dashboards, and that learning management system integration will also provide that much needed data, which coupled with your student feedback is going to demonstrate that really positive return on investment in these platforms. If you're interested in Immersify, then please drop the word Immersify into the chat. So, as a bit of a summary, here at Sim Skills, we've been working to bring you this student-powered simulation model to support you in meeting the challenges of promoting student agency, increasing and enhancing placement capacity, and providing scalable and sustainable high-quality simulation experiences. We'd like to offer every one of the institutions here on the call the opportunity to look at this model in more depth with us, have demonstrations of each of the platforms we've introduced, and to discuss how your curriculum can benefit from all or some of the solutions. I'm generally looking forward to helping you explore the potential that this student-powered simulation offers. Everyone that's registered for this webinar will receive a copy of the recording of the session. And what we're going to do is collate all the questions, because there's a lot of people on the call, collate all the questions together. We'll work with our partners and our subject matter experts to put together good cohesive answers for you. And we'll send all those out along with the recordings and with invitations to speak with us again directly. I really hope that our guest speakers have enjoyed being part of the session. I'd like to thank those guys and also the partners and the Sim Skills team who are on the call. And on all of our behalves, I hope that we can help you with everything that you need to succeed in simulation. You can join us, meet us, come and chat with us. We're physically going to be at the ASPE conference in November in Brighton. We're going to be up in Darlington at the end of November. We're going to be at the CAE HPSN event in December in Nottingham. So if you want to know more about Sim Skills as a company, about what we offer, some of the solutions we have, and if you want to dive into the student-powered simulation model with us, then please come along and have a chat. Also, you can either email us, you can ring us, or you can get in touch with any of us individually or as a company on social media. Everyone who, like I said, is registered is going to get a copy of the recording, and all of the questions have been submitted and the answers. And we'll also let you know about the next set of webinars we're going to be hosting soon. And we're going to give you a sneak peek about what else is coming. So thank you to our guest speakers, and thanks to those on the call from our partners. And we look forward to speaking with you again. And I thank you guys very much for your time. See you again.